Okay. So next we have Gaia Messori. She's a PhD student in economics and management of innovation and sustainability at the University of Parma. Her PhD is looking at the historical and economic impact of food in connection with human dignity in detention spaces in Italy and the US. Are you also doing France and Norway, Gaia?
Yeah.
Okay, so all four of them. Wow, so it's an extensive study. And so this is an extension of her MA at the University of Parma as well. So I will turn it over to you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Carrie, for the introduction and for having me here today. It's a pleasure for me to have the chance to talk about my research. So today I'm going to talk about a slightly different topic, which is the role of food within two total institutions, the Nazi concentration camps and today's prisons. So why food and memory? Food is a powerful tool in several fields of research, and when it comes to individuals deprived of their liberty, make reference to total institutions, food takes on a special meaning and has this huge and incredible ability to tie in with memory. This is why food in these spaces is dreamed, desired, and denied. These three aspects can be comparable both in Nazi concentration camps and in today's prisons, and there are hundreds and hundreds of memories for what concerns the Holocaust survivors about this very specific topic. So regarding food in Nazi concentration camps, here it turned out to be of dual interpretation. On one end, we have the lack of it, the representation of daily inhuman conditions as the symbol of unjustified deprivation of human dignity and violence. On the other end, and this is pretty incredible, food represented hope in Nazi concentration camps, and we will see why shortly. Dealing with the first vision of food, it was the image of cruelty. The element of food was used by the SS soldiers as a tool to exercise their power over prisoners, to show them that they had no value at all. And this is even worse if you think that those men and women tried each and every day of their detention to try and eat even just a single piece of bread to remain alive. Starving to death, sometimes they dreamed about food, and that food has been denied for years every day. So everything in Nazi concentration camps was based on the principles of luck and competition. It really was a daily war within the war, and the final aim was that of eliminating the residual humanity left in those people. Talking about voices and memories of the Holocaust, a couple of years ago, when I was working on my master's degree thesis, I contacted Margherita Dana, who is a coordinator of an Italian association called Figli della Shoah, Children of Shoah, which every day works to keep memory alive even after 80 years. Her father, Mosè Dana, was an Holocaust survivor, and she told me that story, and she gifted me with this piece of history. These words found in her father's diary many years after the end of the war, because as you may know, at the very end of the war and for decades after, the Holocaust survivors did not want to talk about what their memories, what they lived inside Nazi concentration and extermination camps. They just wanted to forget. Some of them just wanted to forget, some others were ashamed. And a very eloquent book about being ashamed is that from Primo Levi, Drowned and Survived. So talking to Margherita has been very powerful under a psychological point of view and emotional point of view, because she was totally there with their emotions and feelings, and she told me everything about his dad, and this is just a small part of what she found in her father's diary. But in this quote, you can really find the principles of luck and competition connected to the element of food. The other side of this of memory and food is hope. I'm sure we all have a clear idea of what Nazi concentration and extermination camps have been. Those places where anything but hope. Instead, some of the people obliged to live there were able to see it, to perceive it through the element of food by dreaming about food. They tried to remember what they used to eat in their home when they were free, and this helped some of them to be stronger and to keep themselves somehow alive. There are several diaries talking about talking about food in very different ways, of course, but I found a culinary diary written by Fedele Carriero and Michele Morelli. They were two Italian soldiers and became prisoners of war during the Second World War in 1944. They wrote this culinary diary, and I think it's particularly interesting, especially if we make reference to the topics of memory and hope linked. They have been able to dream of their home using memory, irony, and the element of food. Here I reported you a few pictures of that diary, and as you can see, they wrote by hand, of course, the receipts, and next to each receipt, they drew a picture, a funny picture using irony. And food within Nazi concentration camps has been very important also for a commitment for the future. So talking about food, talking about receipts, talking about cooking in the past lives was a commitment to the future. There's a very interesting quote here talking about manicaretti, and manicaretti is a specific Italian kind of pasta, and receipts had a strong psychological effect. It represented, as I said, a commitment to the future, the life after the concentration camps. Now, coming to the topic of prison, I found very interesting the comparison between Nazi concentration camps and today's prisons, because of course we are talking about two very different spaces and situations. But if we make reference to Goffman's definition of total institution, which is a place of residence and work where a large number of like-situated individuals cut off from wider society for an appreciable period of time, together lead an enclosed formal administrative around life. So if we make reference to this definition of total institution, that for sure both Nazi concentration camps and today's prisons can be defined as such. And what's interesting is how food plays the same role. So it had this huge and incredible ability to give or take away dignity depending on how it is used in both situations. In prisons in Italy, which is the country I come from and the country in which my research is mainly based, because in Italy we don't have scientific data about quality and quantity of food in prison. Food takes on a huge meaning because people identify with food and use food as a tool. Just think about the practice of food strike, which is largely used by inmates to protest against the inhuman conditions they have to live in. I interviewed a man a couple of months ago, and he told me that he did a food strike for over a month to protest against the conditions in which he had to live each and every day. He was in an overcrowded cell with 6 mates, and 3 of them committed suicide. So the food strike was a way to protest against this wild and crazy situation in which they have to live every day. So even in the case of prison, lack of food, or better in this case, food quality and quantity means lack of human dignity. And of course, has a negative consequences on inmates' lives. But in the long run, this might also affect the entire society. It is a topic of recidivism and social security. And therefore, the question I ask myself, and also the question which is at the very basis of my research, is can a better quality as well as quantity of food in prison in the long run, of course, improve the processes of re-education and resocialization of the individual? I think I'm going to need more than 3 years of PhD to give a proper answer to this question, of course. But what I want to practically do is to understand how socially powerful food is within the detention spaces. And those economic and social consequences linked to food served inside the prison administrations, and also how inmates perceive themselves through food. So it is a social, economical, psychological way of understanding the importance of food within the total institution of prisons. American literature is actually very eloquent about this specific topic. They actually started studying this back in the 70s, and is the main reason why I decided to compare the Italian study, so the Italian data about food quality and quantity, to the American ones. Nowadays, Italian prisons, so Italian government spends about €3 a day for each inmate for their food. €3, which include all the 3 meals, so lunch, breakfast, and dinner. And this happens also in the United States and in so many other prison systems, and this is totally inhuman. It is inhuman to serve damaged food, to oblige people to eat next to the bathroom with no doors to separate anything, because this is what happens inside Italian prisons. Inmates must eat inside their cells, which most of the times are overcrowded. Overcrowding rates in Italy is higher than 120% in general, but in some specific prisons, that rate is even higher, is 190% in a couple of prisons in Italy. So just imagine eating your food each and every day inside a cell, which is overcrowded, with no separation between the place you eat, the place you sleep, and the place you go to the bathroom. It is inhuman to make people eat food of such low quality and quantity every day, sometimes for the rest of their lives. This is not even food anymore. This is punishment over punishment. So it's the element of food used as a punishment for prisoners. So many inmates actually told me that food, they feel that food given to them by the administration is actually a punishment, a daily punishment. But why memory is so important, and why it is linked, of course, to food, but also to human dignity. 2 keywords: conviviality and sharing. Sharing of stories, emotions, and memories. Food has this huge power to bring people together through a simple plate of pasta, for example, or to make memories bloom through that simple plate of pasta. But most of the times, at least in Italian prisons, food is so bad and cheap that this sharing of memories and lives is not even thinkable. The conviviality moment in Italian prison is not possible. They start to serve food at 11 a.m. because there are hundreds of inmates in our prisons. And when the first one starts to eat his meal, the last one has to wait from 30 minutes to an hour to receive his meal. And of course, it arrives cold. So the 97% of the inmates I interviewed in a year and a half of PhD, I interviewed around 200 inmates. Because the bureaucratic process to get inside Italian prison is very long. Just think about the fact that the first prison I went into, I had to wait 6 months before actually starting interviewing inmates. So it's a pretty long time. They told me that food is prison food is awful. It's not even food most of the times. They reported to have eaten damaged food, such as fish or meat, several times. They were smelling so bad, and they were just not eatable at all. One of them told me that he had to cook for himself, for his mates, because he was working inside the prison kitchen. He had to cook dog pasta, so literally pasta that was made to be eaten by dogs. Then milk made out of powder and nothing else, coffee made out of water, nothing else, and so many other stories, horrible and inhuman testimonies. But several of them told me that sometimes, just to feel alive and to feel far away from that space of detention, they imagined they were eating a colorful and tasty dish their moms used to prepare when they were free. So here's the link between Nazi concentration camps and prisons. Once again, inside a total institution, food, the element of food, is used as a tool to survive, to resist inside an institution that is not re-educating you, it's just punishing you. So the topic of memory is one of the stronger. The power of food, at least imagined food, that brings out positive memories and help people to remain strong. So life in prison is very tough. It cannot be considered life most of the times, and this is negative, of course. It is negative for those human beings' lives, but it's also against what should be the prime aim of detention, which is the process of re-education. For what concerns Italy, at the theoretical level, we believe in re-education. Our constitution believes in re-education. It believes that punishment should be aimed at re-educating and the re-education and resocialization of the individual. But I actually have a few questions. How can an individual be re-educated if treated this way? Is this treatment positive for our society? And again, the topic of social security and recidivism. And finally, are we really following that principle of re-education? My answer for this final question is a huge no, we're not. In Italy, we're not following that principle of re-education. We're not following the Article 27 of the Italian Constitution. We're not even close. And it is no coincidence that in Italy, the recidivism rate is at 70%, while in countries like Norway, for example, that rate dropped radically after the introduction of policies aimed at improving prison conditions. Prison conditions in general, not just regarding food, but also regarding prison food. So if prison is really the mirror of society, so then there's really a lot we have to work on. There will still be so much to say about the interviews with inmates, also because next month I'll start interviewing former inmates from three Italian regions. I'll be interviewing around 400 people. Each of them has a story to tell. Each of them has a testimony about the inhumanity of our prisons. But I think time is up. So thank you so much for your attention. And if you have any question, here's my email and you can ask me whatever you want. Thank you.